Hey everyone, welcome back to Native Speakers Channel. I'm Johnny and I'm so excited to have you here with us today. If you're new to our channel, welcome. We create easy-to-follow English lessons that help you speak confidently in real-life situations. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Today, we have a really important topic that many of you have requested. We're going to talk about meeting participation English for beginners, essential phrases to speak confidently in meetings. Whether you're preparing for your first business meeting in English, joining online conferences, or just want to feel more confident when speaking in group discussions, this lesson is perfect for you. I'm joined by my co-host, Sarah, and together we're going to walk you through all the essential phrases, expressions, and tips you need to participate actively and professionally in English meetings. We'll cover everything from introducing yourself, expressing opinions, agreeing and disagreeing politely, asking questions, and so much more. So, grab your notebook, get comfortable, and let's dive right in. Sarah? Are you ready?
Absolutely, Johnny. I'm really excited about this lesson. Meetings can be intimidating, especially in a second language. But with the right phrases and practice, anyone can participate confidently.
That's so true, Sarah. You know, I remember when I first started working in an international company, I was so nervous about speaking up in meetings. Even though English is my native language, I still felt the pressure. So I can only imagine how our viewers might feel when they have to participate in meetings in English.
Exactly. And the thing is, meetings have their own special language and etiquette. It's not just about knowing English, it's about knowing the right phrases to use at the right time. So, Johnny, where should we start?
Great question. I think we should start at the very beginning. How to introduce yourself in a meeting, especially if it's your first time meeting some of the participants.
Perfect. So let's imagine you've just joined a new meeting. Maybe it's a team meeting, a project kickoff, or even a client call. The meeting organizer might ask everyone to introduce themselves. Here are some simple and professional ways to do that.
Right. So you could say, "Hi everyone, my name is Johnny. I'm the marketing manager here at ABC Company. I've been with the company for 2 years, and I'm excited to be part of this project."
That's a great example. Notice how Johnny included 3 key pieces of information: his name, his role, and a brief additional detail. You can also add, "I'm looking forward to working with all of you," or "Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions."
Exactly. Now, Sarah, what if someone is brand new to the company or team? How should they introduce themselves?
Good point. If you're new, you might say, "Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Chen. I just joined the team last week as a junior designer. I'm really excited to learn from all of you and contribute to this project. Please be patient with me as I'm still getting up to speed."
I love that. It's humble, friendly, and honest. People appreciate that kind of introduction because it shows you're eager to learn. Now, let's move on to the next important part of meeting participation: how to express your opinions and ideas.
Yes, this is where many English learners struggle because they're not sure how to jump into the conversation. They have great ideas, but they don't know how to share them confidently.
Absolutely. So let's give our viewers some really useful phrases. Sarah, what would you say if you wanted to share an idea during a meeting?
Well, there are several ways to do this politely and professionally. You could say, "I'd like to share an idea if I may," or "Can I add something here?" These phrases are polite and they permit you to speak.
Great examples. You could also say, "I have a suggestion," or "Here's what I'm thinking." These are more direct but still professional. Another one I use a lot is "from my perspective," or "in my opinion."
Oh, yes, those are excellent. Let me give you a complete example. From my perspective, I think we should focus more on social media marketing. Based on the data we collected last quarter, our audience is primarily on Instagram and TikTok.
Perfect. Notice how Sarah didn't just give her opinion, she also backed it up with reasoning. That's really important in business meetings. You want to support your ideas with facts, data, or logic.
Exactly. Now, Johnny, what about when you want to express a different opinion or disagree with someone? That can be tricky because you don't want to sound rude or aggressive.
Oh, this is such an important skill. Disagreeing politely is an art form in English business communication. You never want to say, "You're wrong," or "That's a bad idea" directly. Instead, you soften your disagreement.
Right. So you might say, I see your point, but have we considered? Or, that's interesting. However, I think there might be another approach.
Those are excellent. Here are a few more. "I understand where you're coming from, but," or "I respectfully disagree because," or "I have a slightly different perspective on this."
Let me give you a full example of polite disagreement. Tom, I appreciate your suggestion about extending the deadline. However, I'm concerned that it might affect our other projects. What if we instead allocate more resources to finish on time?
Brilliant! Notice how Sarah acknowledged Tom's idea first, then expressed her concern, and then offered an alternative solution. That's the perfect formula for disagreeing professionally.
Thank you. Now let's talk about agreeing with someone, because that's equally important. When someone shares a good idea, you want to support them.
Absolutely. You can say, "I completely agree with Sarah," or "That's exactly what I was thinking," or "I'm on board with that idea."
Yes. Or you could say, I couldn't agree more. Or that makes perfect sense to me. Or I support this approach.
Here's a more elaborate way to show agreement. "I'd like to build on what David just said. I think his point about customer feedback is crucial, and I'd like to add that we should also consider."
Excellent. That's called building on someone's idea, and it shows you're actively listening and contributing to the conversation collaboratively.
Now, Sarah, what about when you don't understand something? In my experience, many English learners are afraid to ask for clarification because they think it makes them look bad.
Oh, that's such a common concern. But here's the truth. Asking for clarification is a sign of intelligence, not weakness. It shows you're paying attention and you want to understand completely.
Exactly. So, how would you ask for clarification in a professional way?
There are many polite ways to do this. You could say, could you clarify what you mean by that? Or, I'm not sure I understand. Could you explain that again, please?
Great. You could also say, "Just to make sure I understand correctly, are you saying that," or "Could you give me an example of what you mean?"
Yes, and if there's a specific word or term you don't understand, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that term. Could you explain what ROI means? Or could you spell that acronym for me?
Perfect. Let me give you a real scenario. Imagine someone says, "We need to leverage our synergies to maximize our bandwidth." That's a lot of business jargon. You could respond, "I want to make sure I understand. When you say leverage our synergies, do you mean we should work together more closely across departments?"
That's a perfect example, Johnny. You're not saying, I don't understand your fancy words. You're professionally asking for clarification by rephrasing what you think they mean.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about something that makes many people uncomfortable: interrupting. Sometimes in meetings, people talk for a long time and you need to jump in with a question or comment. How do you do this politely?
This is tricky because you don't want to be rude, but you also need to be heard. The key is to use polite interruption phrases. You could say, sorry to interrupt, but I have a quick question.
Yes, or "If I may interrupt for just a moment," or "Can I jump in here briefly?"
Another good one is, before we move on, could I ask something? Or, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think this is important.
Those are all excellent. Now, what if someone interrupts you while you're speaking? How do you politely continue?
Good question. You can say, let me just finish this thought, or I'll be quick, I promise, or please bear with me for one more moment.
Perfect. You could also say, I appreciate your input, and I'll address that in just a second. Let me complete this point first.
Now, Johnny, let's talk about asking questions during meetings. This is so important because asking good questions shows you're engaged and thinking critically.
Absolutely. There are different types of questions you might ask. For clarification, we already covered that, but you might also want to ask about timelines, responsibilities, or details.
Right. For timelines, you could ask, when do we need to have this completed? Or what's the deadline for this deliverable? Or how much time do we have to work on this?
Great. And for responsibilities, you might ask, who will be responsible for this task? Or could we clarify the roles for this project? Or should I take the lead on this, or is someone else assigned?
Excellent. You might also need to ask about resources. What budget do we have for this? Or do we have the necessary tools to complete this? Or will we need additional support?
Perfect. Now let's talk about some other essential meeting phrases. What about when you want to suggest taking action or making a decision?
Oh, yes. You could say, I propose that we, or I suggest we move forward with, or why don't we try?
Great. You could also say, let's consider doing this, or what if we were to this, or I recommend that we this.
Here's a complete example. I propose that we schedule a follow-up meeting next week to review the progress. This will help us stay on track and address any issues early. What does everyone think?
Excellent. Notice how Sarah made a proposal and then asked for feedback. That's collaborative leadership right there.
Thank you. Now, what about when you want to bring the group back to the main topic? Sometimes meetings get off track, right?
Oh yes, that happens all the time. You could politely say, let's get back to the main agenda. Or, that's interesting, but perhaps we could return to the original topic?
Yes. Or, I think we're getting a bit off track. Can we refocus on the main issue? Or, let's table that discussion for now and come back to it later.
Perfect. Now let's talk about participating in different types of meetings. For example, in brainstorming sessions, you want to be creative and open. You might say, what if we thought outside the box here? Or, let's think creatively about this problem.
Great. In problem-solving meetings, you might say, what's the root cause of this issue? Or let's identify the challenges first before proposing solutions.
Exactly. And in decision-making meetings, you might say, what are our options here? Or, let's weigh the pros and cons of each approach.
Excellent. Now, Johnny, we should talk about active listening phrases because participation isn't just about talking, it's also about showing you're listening.
So true. You can use phrases like, that's a good point, or I hadn't thought of that, or that's really interesting.
Yes, you can also use verbal cues like I see, or right, uh-huh, or exactly to show you're following along.
And you can summarize what others have said to show you're listening. So if I understand correctly, you're suggesting that or let me summarize what I've heard so far.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about closing a meeting or wrapping up your participation. This is important because you want to leave a strong professional impression.
Absolutely. If you're leading the meeting wrap-up, you might say, let's summarize the key points we discussed today. Or, to recap, we've agreed on the following action items.
Yes, you could also say, before we close, does anyone have any final questions? Or let's confirm our next steps before we end.
And if you're a participant, you might say, thank you everyone for your input today. Or, I appreciate everyone's time and contributions.
Great. You could also confirm your own action items. Just to confirm, I'll be working on the market research and we'll have it ready by Friday. Does that sound correct?
Perfect. That shows responsibility and clarity. Now let's talk about some phrases for virtual meetings, which have become so common nowadays.
Oh, yes. Virtual meetings have their own challenges. You might need to say, can everyone hear me okay? Or, I think you're on mute. Or, could you share your screen, please?
Exactly. You might also say, I'm sorry, I was having audio issues. Could you repeat that? Or, the connection is a bit unstable on my end. Can you see and hear me clearly?
Great. And you might need to say, I'll type this in the chat, or I've shared the link in the chat window, or could someone take notes and share them after the meeting?
Excellent points. Now let's talk about email follow-ups after meetings, because good participation doesn't end when the meeting ends.
So true. After a meeting, you might want to send an email that says, "Thank you for the productive meeting today. As discussed, I'll complete the report by Thursday and send it to the team."
Perfect. Or you might say, following up on our meeting, here are the action items we agreed upon. This shows professionalism and helps keep everyone accountable.
Excellent. Now, Johnny, let's give our viewers some tips for building confidence in meetings.
Great idea. First tip, prepare in advance. If you know the agenda, prepare some ideas or questions beforehand. Write them down so you have notes to refer to.
Second tip, start small. You don't have to make major presentations at first. Start by asking one question or making one comment per meeting. Build your confidence gradually.
Third tip, practice these phrases out loud before meetings. The more you practice, the more natural they'll feel when you actually need to use them.
Fourth tip, remember that everyone in the meeting is there to collaborate, not to judge your English. Focus on communicating your ideas clearly, not on perfect grammar.
Fifth tip, take notes during the meeting. This helps you stay engaged and gives you talking points to reference when you want to contribute.
Sixth tip, watch how native speakers participate in meetings. Observe the phrases they use, when they speak up, and how they disagree politely.
Excellent tip, Sarah. Now let's do a quick role play to put all these phrases together. I'll be the manager leading a project meeting, and you can be a team member. Ready?
Ready.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's project meeting. We're here to discuss our marketing campaign for the new product launch. Before we dive in, Sarah, would you like to share your thoughts on the social media strategy?
Thank you, Johnny. I'd be happy to share my ideas. From my perspective, I think we should focus heavily on Instagram and TikTok, since our target demographic is primarily ages 18 to 35. I suggest we create short, engaging video content that highlights the product's unique features. What does everyone think about this approach?
That's an excellent suggestion, Sarah. I completely agree that visual platforms are crucial for this demographic. However, I'm wondering about our timeline. When do you think we could have the first round of content ready?
That's a great question. If I may, I'd like to propose that we aim for 2 weeks from now. This would give us enough time to create quality content and review it before posting. Does that timeline work for everyone?
I think that's reasonable. Let's confirm the action items. Sarah will lead the social media content creation with a deadline of 2 weeks from today. Before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions or concerns?
Just to clarify, will we have a budget for influencer partnerships, or should we focus solely on organic content for now?
Great question. For now, let's focus on organic content. We can revisit influencer partnerships in our next meeting once we see the initial performance. All right, if there are no other questions, let's end here. Thank you everyone for your valuable input today.
That was a great example, Johnny. Did you see how we used so many of the phrases we discussed throughout this lesson?
Exactly. We introduced ideas, asked questions, made suggestions, and wrapped up professionally, all with the phrases we taught today.
Now, before we finish this lesson, let's quickly recap the main categories of phrases we covered today.
Great idea. So we covered 1. Introducing yourself in meetings, 2. Expressing opinions and ideas, 3. Agreeing and disagreeing politely, 4. Asking for clarification, 5. Interrupting politely, 6. Asking questions, 7. Making suggestions and proposals, 8. Active listening phrases, 9. Closing and follow-up phrases, and 10. Virtual meeting phrases.
That's a comprehensive list. Remember, everyone, the key to mastering meeting participation is practice. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn and improve.
Absolutely. And here's my final piece of advice. Record yourself practicing these phrases. Listen back and see how you sound. This will help you gain confidence before you use them in real meetings.
Great tip, Johnny. And remember, even native speakers sometimes feel nervous in meetings. The difference is that they have the phrases and the practice. Now you have the phrases too. All you need is practice.
Well said, Sarah. All right, everyone, that brings us to the end of today's lesson on meeting participation English. I hope you found this helpful and feel more confident about participating in English meetings.
If you enjoyed this lesson, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Native Speakers channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future lessons.
And if you have any questions or want us to cover specific meeting scenarios, please leave a comment below. We read every single comment and love hearing from you.
Also, practice these phrases this week and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear your success stories.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Keep practicing, stay confident, and we'll see you in the next lesson.
Bye, everyone. Good luck with your meetings.
See you next time on Native Speakers Channel.